wonder why God doesn't just reveal his whole plan for you right away? I've been there. I think the same thing from time to time. Hey there, I'm Danielle Zapchenk, and thank you so much for joining me on the Parable Podcast. Today, you're going to meet Community Care Coordinator Mandy Loh, who shares about how she needed to trust the Good Shepherd to see things a little differently.
It's so hard when you have like a fixed plan and you're so convinced that that's the only way to do it. Sometimes when I'm so fixated with this is the answer I need God to confirm, that's usually when I don't hear from him. It's only when I say, okay, God, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to leave it in your hands. Tell me, what is it you want me to do? Silence sometimes just means be open to something that was not what you originally wanted.
Here's my conversation with Mandy Loh. To introduce you to Mandy Loh. Mandy was introduced to me by another friend, Sherry Banky. She was on a previous episode. And so it is always exciting to meet someone new and learn a couple of details about your life. So welcome, Mandy.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm so happy to be here.
Absolutely. Well, Mandy, this summer, our kids and I, we went on a trip and I had brought along this box of questions. I am a question asker to begin with, but I'm like, anytime somebody can prompt me with questions, this will be great. It wasn't as well received as I hoped. They're just like, Mom, why are you carrying these questions around? But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to utilize these questions for the podcast. So Mandy, since we are new to each other, I'd love to know if you could play a musical instrument, and maybe you do. What do you think is like the coolest instrument that you're like, oh, I wish I had the capacity and the understanding of how to do that?
Yeah, I play the piano not very well, but I would say that I wish I could play the violin. And this is something that my kids learn through school orchestra, and I wish I had learned it when I was younger. I mean, I guess I could still learn it now, but the violin just has this amazing, like, beautiful sound quality, and it's so emotive that I feel like when I hear someone who really plays the violin well, it's like you can just feel it like in your spirit. It's just beautiful.
Yeah. When you were younger, was there anything that your parents did that you're like, oh, I'm never going to do that? And you find yourself either doing that today, or you just kind of remember that fun memory of like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that when I get older.
Okay, well, I mean, not a specific incident, but I would say that growing up, I am Enneagram 7, so I love to do stuff. I love to like find fun things to do. And my parents were both working, and so I was just at home a lot and like bored a lot as a child. So now the reaction to that is I am the mom that brings my kids to every fun thing around the area, and they are exhausted. My husband is exhausted. So I think like that's the reaction, like, cause I felt bored as a child. Like I didn't get to do fun things very much. So I overcompensate with my kids, and now we're like always doing stuff every weekend.
Oh my gosh. Is there any child that you have that matches your Enneagram 7 energy?
For sure, my older one, my son, is definitely not a 7 because he would rather be at home, and he's an introvert. So yeah, he definitely feels that like contrast a lot. My daughter is probably a little bit more like me. Like she's outgoing and she likes to do fun things too, but I think my energy is still higher than all of theirs combined. So
yeah. Mandy, do you have a memory that you can remember, like your earliest memory? Is there something like how early can you go back?
Yeah, sometimes my older sister says that I seem to have memories that are older than hers, and she's 5 years older, so it's surprising. I'm trying to think of one of the younger memories. So I remember walking along with either my mom or my dad and asking a bunch of questions, like, why is it this? Why is it that? And they're like, you'll understand when you grow up. I just remember that memory. I don't know how old I was. Probably 4 or 5, and I just remember I was just constantly asking questions and they were like done.
Yeah. Are you a person that still asks a lot of questions?
Yeah, I think I'm still quite curious and I still love to go find out stuff. And now, wonderfully, with Google and all the things we have on our fingertips, we're able to, get information quite easily. So yeah, I think I'm still curious.
Mandy, let us know a little bit about your day to day.
Okay, so yeah, I have 2 kids and now they're already slightly older. So it's like a 11 and 14-year-old. And so they're both fresh out of elementary. One is in middle school and one's in high school. So I do have more time on my hands and I do feel like I have more freedom now. Because when the kids were younger, I would have to be home a lot to like be hands-on with a lot of the care. But now that they're older, I feel like I do have more bandwidth to do my things. So what I'm really happy about nowadays is that I volunteer in my church as a community cares coordinator, which means that I kind of coordinate a lot of local service projects. I work with various team leads to kind of like talk to them about how we can do projects and how we can better work with the partner organizations we work with. So it's been great. I love it. It's flexible and it also fulfills like that passion in my heart that God has placed in me, that this is something I can do for him. And I love it. So it's like perfect.
That's so great. I'm so glad that natural time of our life. So I have a 12, almost 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. And so, there's that time of like, I wanted to be a mom, but also there's like these pieces of me that I'm like, okay, like here's the passion and the natural trajectory of our life. We eventually get there and then it's a season for everything else. So I totally understand that. Yeah. Mandy, before we get into your story, there's this idea of like what success is, but I think everyone has their own version of what that means. There's the worldly success, but for us, for people who love Jesus, success can mean different things. So if you think about the last year or the last couple of years of your life, what has been something that you're like, I felt very successful in this area?
I really resonate with that. I really feel like Jesus has promised us fullness of life. And I take that very seriously. Like I need to live life to the fullest every moment of every day. And I tell my husband and my kids that all the time. Like we're not looking forward to the day when we have this or the day when we achieve something. We should just be in the moment and just live fully in each moment. And that's something that I have like been striving or like trying to do. And I feel like I'm pretty successful with it. Like I feel like every single day I recap and I go like, it was a good day. I'm happy where I am. Like, I'm happy that we're here. So I try to like just keep infusing that in my life. How do I make the most of my life? How do I be the light in this world? So the things I do, the decisions that I make, I see it in that view. That point of view. And I'm so glad that my husband and I are both on the same page in terms of like material and financial success to us is not important. Like we're okay. We're not struggling and, we're not rolling in it. We're not like super, like in like luxury and stuff, but that's fine because that's not how we define happiness. That's not how we define our success. So as long as we feel like, we have that joy of the Lord, we have a good family, we have good health. Those are the things that to us are success.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally agree with you. Thank you so much for sharing. Well, Mandy, this whole podcast is really about people's stories, where God has always been in their life, but we can look back at a certain period of time, or maybe it was a season and say, oh, wow, like I saw you walking alongside me. And here's what I learned from it. So, Mandy, I'd love for you to share with us one of your parable stories today.
So for my parable, it's not so much one specific period of my life, but I see it as like a theme in my life that has happened several times. So the very first time was in my mid-20s. I had something called a quarter life crisis. I had just graduated. I was in my first job and I absolutely was not happy. I was like, okay, so what am I doing? Because all my schooling career was leading up to this, right? To this job. And I was like, okay, now I don't like it. What am I going to do? So I got into a crisis mode. I was trying to figure it out. I read lots of books. What is my purpose in life? I was trying so hard to like just figure it out, prayed a lot. Didn't really hear anything like a straight answer. So I took a year out. I actually took a year out. I went to travel. I went to backpack around and just kind of have time to like find myself. Well, the long story short, at the end of it all, I still didn't know the answer, but I got a hint from God, and that is, He is my good shepherd, and He's going to guide me every step of the way. So He's not going to tell me, hey, this is what you're going to be at the end of it. You know, at like 70 years old, this is what you're going to achieve, and this is what you're going to do. No, He doesn't reveal that end story to us. He wants us to trust Him every single day and every step of the way. That was what I got from that year out, you know, and then I was like, okay, cool, let's do that. And so I've seen that really recur again and again, because it's almost like my life theme, and my life verse is like Jeremiah 29:11. It is, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And I really hold on to that, because if you know that God's got your back, you don't have to worry about the things, because He's got it. He's got the plan for you. You just got to follow it. At that time, when in that quarter life crisis, when I was just kind of figuring it out, I actually got a visual image in my mind of the Good Shepherd. Like, I saw a shepherd, like, you know, guiding one sheep along the path in a green pasture. And like, you know, there was like a bit of a rocky thing, and the shepherd was kind of helping the sheep up that rocky path. And I was like, that was really strong and beautiful, and something that I will always remember, because that's what God wants me to see Him as, like, just follow Him.
Mandy, that is so true of so many people. There's a TV show that I watch, and there was a joke once about the quarter life crisis, and we kind of laugh about that. But if we all go back to those early 20s, of whether you've come out of high school, college, or the career, and you're like thinking, I am building up to this is the job of all jobs, of what I've been trying to do with my life. And then you're just like, this isn't what I thought it would be. There is this idea of transition, and wonder, like, did I just waste a bunch of money? Did like all this time? And so there is, I'm sure we could find some stats about that age group of just having this crisis, not necessarily of faith all the time, but a crisis of like, what am I doing? And it really comes down to purpose. So after, you know, you spent that year, I'm sure, like you said, like there wasn't a clear definition of like, oh, here's exactly the steps that we need to take. I love that you said, you know, God doesn't reveal that. What was that portion out, like trying to live that out afterwards, that year of backpacking?
While backpacking, it was just kind of like having fun. But like there was a person that I met that like he was just kind of like a stranger in New York, and we walked around Central Park together, and he just kind of said, you know, you may not see the difference like right now, but when you go back after you've done all this like exploring and like learning, when you go back, you'll see things differently. It was just like a very simple thing that he said. But when I got back, I saw it. I saw what he was saying. It was like the Matrix. I was out of the, I could see the code. I could see differently from what all my friends were doing. They were running the race, you know, they were climbing the ladder, and they had like goals and objectives that they wanted to achieve, which is what society keeps telling you. This is what you need to be happy. This is what you need to achieve. And I saw it completely differently. It was like I was out of that trap. I was like, no, I can do it differently. I can define my own rules and my own ways of seeing happiness or like achieving things. So, you know, that was one big thing. I realized that I had somehow like my mind had been opened somehow through the experience, and like I can see that I don't have to conform.
It's kind of like when you are working on a project or you're just really in something. It's like you only have this singular focus, and that's all you can see. And maybe sometimes there's like a little bit of like selfishness, absorption, just because we're like, this is all about me right now. But when we go out, we take a walk, we see like, there are other people in this world, or just to have a better understanding and listening to other people's stories. It helps us understand, okay, there is a bigger picture. And I love that you said it was just this stranger that you met in Central Park.
Yeah.
And here he's speaking life into you. Gosh, that is so helpful. Thank you to him, whoever he was. You said that this has been a theme throughout your life. So this was when you were in your early 20s. When did this pop up for you again?
So like I was saying, I'm an Enneagram 7. I like to plan like fun things. So one of the things in my 30s was like, I think it'd be fun for our family to like experience life in another country. So I'm from Singapore in Southeast Asia. And I was like telling my husband, Tim, I was like, hey, you know, if you could get like maybe a 2-year stint somewhere, like China, maybe we could like just live abroad and have fun and enjoy a different culture and then come back and then, you know, just get back to normal life. And so I was praying to God. I asked God this. I was like, God, can you please give us this experience of being overseas, please? And I had this very fixed plan in mind. So obviously I didn't learn very much, but like I was like, God, this is what we're going to do. Okay. Let me tell you what's the proposal. Like 2 years. Let's do a 2-year thing. Well, the kids are still very young and we can just have fun, overseas, and then we'll come back and have like proper elementary school and like get into the whole groove of it. And so I was like telling him, I only have this timeline and after that it will not work anymore. So God, you got to make it happen in the next 2 years. It didn't happen, obviously, the way that I proposed. But he had an even better plan. So I am now in the US and that's because my husband got a position in the US through the same company that he works in. And it's a permanent transfer, which means it wasn't like a 2-year window. And that turned out to be a better plan because we don't have to like know that we have to get back into the Singapore system, which would be quite tough actually. So coming here as a permanent position and like knowing that we're settled here is actually better than a transient kind of 2-year thing. So the whole thing just to say, God has a better plan than me.
Yes. Oh, if I could look at all the times I've thought I've had a better plan, and usually his is always better. I should say always. But in the moment, you know, I love to plan fun things too. Like I'll think about what are we going to do next summer and like get there. And I remember when 2020 happened, I had 3 lovely, beautiful things that I was so looking forward to. And I just had to let all of those go because that wasn't going to happen at all. And I mean, that is just a minute thing, but on a bigger scale of, I think that's just a part of my personality where I just seek to control things because it's just like, oh, if we all just follow all these things in a row, like everything will work out. But there's not that fulfillment or we're not really seeing things. We're just like, we're not even living sometimes. We're just doing. And so that is a hard thing. What would your encouragement be for somebody who has this fixed plan and they keep like hitting their head on the wall, just trying to like live through that?
It is so hard when you have like a fixed plan and you're so convinced that that is the only way to do it. I would say just, you know, pray and have an open heart to hear. I've said this to friends before. Sometimes when I'm so fixated with this is the answer I need God to confirm, that's usually when I don't hear from him. Because when you need to open up your mind to like, okay, it could be a yes, it could also be a no, or it could be a maybe or wait. So many times I have experienced this. I'm praying for something very earnestly and I'm like, give me a yes. It's not going to happen. Yeah. It's only when I say, okay, God, I'm going to open it up and I'm going to leave it in your hands. Tell me what is it you want me to do. Then you can hear a prompting or you kind of have like a door open in another way that you didn't expect. And that's usually the way that God wants you to go. So closed doors, silence sometimes just means be open to something that was not what you originally wanted.
Yeah, Mandy, for somebody who really loves fun, I just did a message about fun, and I do believe that is like what holiness is. Not everything, but there's so many pieces of what holiness looks like in our life. How do you balance that? Because, you know, there is like, if that is, we're always like doing and going, how do you do that for yourself? Or have you recognized like, okay, how do I need to balance this to maybe rein it back in sometimes?
I have like reflected on this many times because, you know, the fun thing can sometimes take number one in your life. And I try to be mindful that that shouldn't be the case. I should always have my priorities in the right place. And I also try to balance like what my family needs. So if they're really like, okay, mom, we really don't want to be doing all that much, you know, I have to like balance that as well. And also like always being mindful, like, am I doing this just for myself? And like being very mindful that, you know, I live not for myself, but for God. Yeah. And I'm not like super religious or, you know, like super spiritual or anything, but like I just try to remind myself now and then, like, let's not make fun my God, you know, let not that be number one in my life. And I have to remind myself that I tend to want to do fun stuff. I tend to want to just pursue my own enjoyment. So I want to just always make sure that I have other, you know, like priorities that I'm putting in front of me as well. Like, hey, what does God want me to do with my life? What can I do here to make things better? To just share love and to be kind and all that.
Mandy, did you grow up in Singapore? Is that right?
Singapore.
When did you first come over to the U.S.?
2018 in the summer, that's when we moved over.
Would you say, you know, as somebody who has now come into the U.S., what's different or something that you've noticed about the idea of Western Christian culture compared to how you grew up in Singapore and maybe how you did learn about Jesus? You know, was that from a young age as well?
Yes, I was blessed to have been born in a Christian family and even my grandparents Christian, because that is very rare in Singapore or like in the Asian cultures to have even grandparents as Christian. So thankfully I grew up as a child like in church and I always knew Jesus. So that was really good. You know, it's interesting because in Asia, the churches are growing and the young people are really on fire for God. And when we came over here, we expected to see the same thing. But actually, I would say that a lot of young people nowadays are more skeptical and they probably may know about Jesus, but are choosing to not be in the church at the moment because maybe due to unfortunate scandals that have happened in recent times or some personal reasons that maybe they had bad experiences personally. That was the difference I saw. Like the Asian church is growing. The young people are going to church and it's big. And whereas here is more like a slightly different part of the curve.
Yeah, that's interesting to see. Anytime I talk to somebody from another part of the world, or even those who have come into the U.S. and now just seeing the culture and they're like, oh, this is so different, or like what I, you know, didn't imagine. Because, you know, when you walk into a new culture, there's like some expectancies of like, oh, they'll be the same. But that's so interesting. And that's exciting that the young people in Asia are just on fire for Jesus. That's so cool.
We forgot. Yeah.
Mandy, you talked about you are a volunteer coordinator for serving at your church. Tell me a little bit about your heart for service. Like, why is that important to you?
So before I had kids, I actually worked in a nonprofit called World Vision. And it was something that I felt was my dream job and I loved it so much. But when I had kids, I was like, I have a really strong calling to be a stay-at-home mom. So it was a really tough tussle, but I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. But my heart was always like, you know, God, I really want to get back into that kind of area again. And so when I joined part-time in the church, I was like, oh yes, I'm in the church. I'm working in the church. I love that. The portfolio was office admin. So it wasn't really my strength, I would say. And then so when I had the opportunity to transition into this role instead, I was so happy because I was like, God, that is what I want. This is where I feel fulfillment. I feel like my calling, and I feel like this is where my skills and my passions are. I can do this well. I can relate to people. I can coordinate things. And I love that we are making a difference in the community, helping people. Also allowing the church attenders to also be part of it. Because I think a lot of times people are like, I would love to do something. I just don't know how. I don't know when. So when you have that put in front of you, like to sign up, you're like, okay. And so you're kind of like allowing them to be part of something good. And at the same time, also helping the community. So it's beautiful.
Mandy, as we are wrapping up, I would love to ask you, as you are thinking about the next 10 to 20 years of your life, what is something that you're looking forward to, something maybe you want to celebrate, or you're getting excited about? Obviously we can only plan so much. We've learned that already. But there is, such goodness that God brings us in our life. And is there anything that pokes out to you?
So I've learned not to dream too much or plan too much, but I do have a dream that when the kids go to college, that my husband and I can go live in Europe for a while. Another place, another culture, another fun place to explore. So that's just kind of a dream that my husband and I have. Let's see if it works, put it to God already. The proposal has been sent. So let's see. Of course, at the end of the day, I have learned that it's really an open platform. It's just an open canvas. I am willing to go wherever he leads. And I'm happy and excited and looking forward to all the adventures that will come in the next 10 years.
Well, Mandy, I love your fun energy. This has been great, just really insightful. And I think so many of us can really connect with that idea of either planning or telling God, hey, here's our proposal of what we're hoping for. Yeah, I just appreciate you sharing. If people wanted to get connected to you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
Maybe Facebook or something would be a good way.
Sure.
Just look for me at Mandy Loh at Facebook.
We'll put Mandy's information in today's show notes. Mandy, this was a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the Parable Podcast.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much, Danielle. I loved it.
Well, Mandy's story really resonated with me today because I so much planned my little heart out to help myself or my family or others. And while I know that this is a great skill of mine, I do sometimes let it rule my life. So thank you so much for that reminder for me today, Mandy. I appreciate it. If you want to connect with Mandy, simply visit daniellezapchenk.com for details. And here are 2 reflection questions from our time together today. Number 1, when you are at a crossroads, if you are wondering about your purpose, or maybe you're just kind of feeling rushed and flustered, just take a minute to just settle in. I would love for you to just think about God as our good shepherd and visually immerse yourself in that picture and just take your time and reflect. Number 2, if you were walking in Central Park today and a stranger told you, hey, it's just a chance to look at things differently. Maybe today is the day that you can shake things up, maybe take a walk, reflect in silence, or go talk things out with a trusted friend. Sometimes just letting it all out and sharing all your thoughts really help things readjust, and our perspective can really open up, and more widely, the better. Before you go, could you do me a favor and click on the show notes today and take my listener survey? And by doing so, I'm going to give you 10 basic tips to enhance your conversations and listen really well. This is super helpful. I was just having a conversation with my daughter about she was meeting somebody for the first time. And I'm like, hey, let me just take this out right on my phone and tell you some easy tips, because that kind of takes away that anxiety that builds up sometimes. This episode was edited by my terrific husband, Eric Zapchenk, and we hope you were encouraged to think about your own story. Remember, your parable showcases how God has been your shepherd every step of the way. We'll see you back again next week on the Parable Podcast.